If you're like me, and you got no life and there's nowhere to go, then tune in to the Animation Truman Show. You'll be glad you did.
And good morning. No, we're actually not hanging out in Krita land today. Okay, so I downloaded the updates, the nightly build on Tahoma2D. That's the good news. Everything looks fine, looks pretty snappy. This is Tahoma 1.5.2. The bad news is I've got so much stuff going on that I just don't remember where I saved the temporary file that had the problem, just to make sure that the problem is solved. Maybe I put it in, let's see, this is 03-93X. So this would of course be in the episode 3 folder. So if I don't find it really quick, I'm just going to move on and get busy on my show. Excuse me. It appears that the 0393X. So I guess I need to go to the root of the episode 3 folder. Click. Drag it down here. It seems to me, I thought I saved the glitchy file, but apparently I didn't. So we'll see if I bump into anything else in the future, but at this point I think we're okay. So let's keep moving forward. What do we need to do? Well, let's see. We probably should pop Vegas up on the screen so we can see what the status of the edit is, and this should probably be the most recent scene file. But as I was toggling through a bunch of scene files, the quick menu is no longer accurate. So on the other screen, I'm just going to load up the edit so I can see what the last scene was. It seems to me, actually, I could just look here. I know this is a bit silly. We go to episode 3. Basically, what's the last folder? There it is. The last folder is 94E, which would mean this is what we're looking for. And while I'm here, I'm up there. Well, corrupt level. Actually, that is it. Okay, cool. So we're going to load up E, but first, let's create a new scene. And then we'll just dump this in here. Okay, so that's the level that had the issue, and watch this. Ta-da! Okay, so Menung John, thank you. What do I say? Is it Radis or Ridis? I can't. It's not in front of me, guys. Darren, Tom, everybody. Cool. This is cool. You know, you guys, everybody kind of pulled together, and the fix came down the pike in about to make its way into the build about 2 weeks. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't sweat it. Well, yes, do sweat it in this sense. If you're a Tahoma2D user, be cautious and be aware that the reason I'm using this nightly build is because version 1.5.2 does in fact have a, well, I don't know what the word is. I don't want to say catastrophic, but it's got a pretty big bug that relates to doing fills that causes bad corruption. And so you probably want to download the nightly build, actually, as opposed to the official 1.5.2 build. If Tom's around, maybe he can tell me. I think in terms of the way this is done, I don't believe if the nightly build, like if everything works its way into the nightly build and, you know, it's kind of a little bit battle tested by the community and everybody kind of agrees that, yeah, that everything in the code is working. Does that ever fold back into the official, like in this case, 1.5.2 build so that the official release that, you know, everybody's downloading all the time actually changes when there are minor bug fixes? I'm curious. I have no idea. I would have assumed that once a release is kind of considered final, that's it. Then there's bug fixes and you can do the nightly builds, but then the only way those nightly fixes, let's call them, work their way into the official release is in the next release. Is that correct? If anybody knows, let me know. I'm just curious about that. So for now, I am back to running 1.5. I will say I still don't love this juicy pink highlighting. I don't know why I don't like it. To me, just a darker shade of gray would be better, like that or something. I find that to be a pretty ugly color, but it's not a deal breaker by any means. So what did I say the scene was that we last worked on? It would have been this one, and I don't know if there's any reason to load it. Honestly, I'm getting my bearings. Okay, I just made a mistake. I dragged the scene in here, and Tahoma thinks I want to bring it in as a sub-X sheet. I wonder what happens if I drop it on the title bar. Yeah, looks like nothing. So let's do... So we don't really have a close all, so apparently I have to do it this way. So that's fine. Boop. And I'm going to discard those changes, load the scene anyway, and here we are. Okay, this is helpful because it keeps things locked to the camera in terms of visually. And the reason that's important is because the background image is like freaking huge. And I don't want to see all that. I want to see how everything's framed. And if you turn this off, it's kind of hard to see these little red lines if you zoom out a bit or whatever. I mean, you can see it, but you're still distracted by all this. So to me, cropping it to the camera is generally preferred. Okay, so everything's working well. The plastic tool stuff looked pretty good. And we have one of those quintessential awkward moments that we see so much in cartoons these days. Boom. I say these days, it's really been true for a long, long time, like generation. But anyway, so Mel has this reaction. Then we got this line of dialogue we punched up yesterday. And so now what we need to do is get our bearings and start rocking and rolling forward through to the end of the race for episode 3, I should say. Well, and then what happens is we're going to be getting into laying in the voices and doing the musical score as well. So okay, so he says, well, don't take this the wrong way. Let's start there, because again, I want to sort of visually get my bearings. What is he doing? Oh, don't take this the wrong way. Take what way? Blah, blah, blah. Something about monkey being the backup plan. Or it's not that we don't have confidence in you, Melchizedek. Yes, yeah, confident. He's like, what the hell are they even talking about? Okay, that's where we're at. So now let's take a look at the script. So I tell you, actually, this is a new feature I just thought of. Oh my gosh. I'll make a note of this. This is software I wrote. Okay, so it's basically a way that I can write a screenplay in the browser and bookmark all the slug lines so that when I click these, it actually goes to the beginning of the scenes. Anyway, as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, what would be really cool is just like a triangle, like a yellow triangle or something, right? That can be moved on the screen to just mark your place, mark where you left off. What was the last shot you did? That, for me, would be kind of useful. I'm going to think about that. I'm going to put that in my to-do list, actually, to at least take a look at. It's totally doable. It's just a question of will I do it, because it's something I have to, divert energy to. But anyway, I'm going to put in my notes here, screenplay, software, add a triangle to mark where you left off. So how would that work? Well, that's a good question. Okay, here's what I think. If I click here, this is exposition. Okay, so it has a style, and the style is the style of exposition. If I hit Alt 1, this is no longer exposition. Now this is the name of a character. If I hit Alt 2, this is now dialogue. If I hit Alt 3, this is now parenthetical. If I hit Alt 4, it takes it back to exposition. Okay, so every single one of these paragraphs has a style. I'm just thinking through the logic of it here. What I'm thinking is we have another class, and that class probably, so in other words, when I say class, I mean CSS class. Okay, so the styling of web pages. What we need is a class that says, if I click here and, probably push a button. You could do a hotkey, but I don't think for something you're only going to do very occasionally, like a couple times a day maybe, you don't need a hotkey for that. For that, I don't mind clicking a button. It's like saving and printing. You only do it once in a while, right? So I don't mind clicking a button. And the only reason to even have that consideration is because you may not know this, and it actually is one of the key reasons to be leery of the browser as a platform for software development, even though I think it's the best platform right now, because it's a cross-platform, unified way of getting pictures and boxes and words and things and interactions up on a screen. There's one thing to be aware of, though, that I've noticed, and it's different depending on what browser you use. But if you look at, I use Brave, which is based on Chrome. There's Firefox, obviously. You can go down the list. And it's important to know that the browsers hijack hotkeys. There are key combinations like normally in the browser, if you're writing an in-browser software application, you pretty much need to use Alt as your your control key for hotkeys, as opposed to in desktop apps it normally would be Control or Shift or both. Okay. Well, it turns out that in the browser, each of the browsers, in slightly different ways, actually hijack the Alt key. So what happens is, like, what makes a lot of sense to me is what I just showed you. Alt 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 changes the formatting here. The problem is, if I'm in the wrong browser or if I have another tab opened like this, then when I hit like Alt 2, in some browsers, this version of Brave on this machine, on this operating system, doesn't happen to have the specific problem. It's fortunate that the one I use the most for this is the one that has the least problems. But on a lot of browsers, if you hit Alt 1, it's going to, or Alt 2, let's say, it's going to switch to this tab. And the problem is that the hotkeys are hard-coded. They're hard-coded into the browser. There's literally no way to change them. At least that's the conventional wisdom. If you do a search, or an AI inquiry, that's what they're going to tell you. They're going to tell you, yeah, you can't change it, which is kind of silly. But there it is. So anyway, I don't know how I got off on the problem of hotkeys in the browser, but anyway, oh yeah. So to do this marker, I wouldn't use a hotkey. I'd probably just put a button, and I probably would put the button here or something like that, just out of the way. So the idea is, this has the style of exposition. So if I click here or select part of it or whatever, the tool knows that this is, in fact, the paragraph that's currently selected. It knows what this is. It's aware of it. So then you click the button, and this other style gets added. And that other style puts like a big impossible to miss triangle right there, or something of that nature. Then the key to it is, if I say, well, I just knocked out these 3 shots, and tomorrow when I pick up my work, I'm going to start here, let's say. If I click the button and apply that class style to this, then before that style application occurs, first the tool, the software, JavaScript basically, needs to scan. Well, it would be done with jQuery. So what would happen is you do a jQuery query to find the selector that has that class, and it would be this one up here that I set earlier. And then it would remove that class and then apply that class to this one down here, which means that only one line in the entire script can possibly have that class at any given time. Because when you apply it, it removes it from the prior one. That would be cool, because then I got a way of basically seeing where I'm at. Now, there's another possibility, and that would be that's I talked this through because these are the thoughts that you think about when you're thinking about diving into code, because it always comes at a time cost, and plus you could invest a lot of effort, and it turns out it doesn't work. Okay, so I'm always thinking, and this is true with animation software too, I'm always thinking, does the software already actually contain the solution to the problem that I'm trying to solve? Is the solution actually there already, but I'm just not thinking of it, or I'm missing it? And in this case, the answer would be, well, number one, you just put in some code like that. 3 hashtags and 3 exclamation points. For me, that is, for me personally, my universal find your place code. Right? So then you come, hey, I need to get to work on my script. Well, you just go control find 3 hashtags and you're there. So honestly, everything I just said about the triangle, now that I think it through, it's like, okay, that's kind of stupid. Just put something in the script that you can search for, and because you're only going to do it one time at the beginning of your workday, right? Well, to quote Snoopy, as I've done so many times, sometimes I'm just smart enough to realize how dumb I am. Okay, Amars here. Sounds like a feature where you track the save point. But yeah, you know what? But like I said, man, I just thought it through, and I'm like, you know what? There's actually 2 ways to do it. One that's baked into the software, and one that doesn't need to be. The one that doesn't need to be is what I just said. Just put in some triple hashtag or something that you can search for. That would be number one. And the other thing would be just make it a, let's see, can I make this a slug line? Let me see. Okay, so let's say that would be, okay, so that's interesting. Okay, the second method won't work unless I put in text. So let me just show you what the logic is here. The logic is, what I was going to say is, well, why not just turn it into a slug line? Turns out you don't get to have a slug line unless there's already text. But if there already needs to be text, then why don't you just put in your 3 hashtags? So there's no need to do the formatting. So the most efficient solution to that little problem I just basically invented is to simply just put in a few hashtags or some other unique set of keystrokes that would only ever appear in one place, right? Then when you open that file and that save point in that log file, and then register the save point, you can add a style via highlight and or arrow. Ooh, correct. Yeah, let's see, you posted that at 10:10. Okay, yeah, so I pretty much covered that already. Yeah, the save feature's on. It saves, it prints. I love this, actually. I mean, this is actually, it's qualified Hollywood-style screenplay formatting, and it actually does a pretty darn good job of predicting how many pages it will be. Because remember, the browser, it's just one long page. There are no pages in a browser, so you need to calculate it. So it's not perfect. This says your script is about 27 pages. And then you go to print it, and it's actually 25. So, it's like the calculation isn't exact, but it gives you an idea. But you can save it as a PDF, and it's quite cool. And obviously, saving your work is generally good practice. The way you're doing it, basically done already with the save function. It places the save point as the last point. Yeah, to me, that's not that valuable, if I'm understanding you. In other words, okay, so what it sounds like at 10:16, Amar's saying is, wouldn't it be good if I'm going to load the script, so let's load up Fan Futurama. If I load up the script, theoretically, wherever I left off, which maybe is on the on-stage scene, is where it jumps to. I'm saying that's not that valuable to me. Like expending the effort to write the code to make it do that would not be that useful. And the reason is, it wouldn't be that hard either, admittedly. But the reason is that when I open a script, typically, number one, I might be writing. And if I'm writing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scan the bookmarks, which are actually the scene titles, and then just get busy writing. And so it actually is fairly rare that I would close the script and open it and want to return to the exact same place where I left. That it could happen, but it would be kind of like unusual. The purpose of that whole idea wasn't to have the script go to the only reason to have that is so that when you're moving fast and animating, which obviously I'm not doing right now because I'm talking about this, by the way, you just want to jump right to where you left off so you can get busy animating, you know. Hey, this is the shot you need to do today. Now, if it was a team situation, then that would be useful because you're passing it on to the next person and then they have some sense of what needs to be done next. But now we're getting into feature bloat where we say, well, now we want this to be sort of groupware. And if that's the case, don't you want some other features over here that sort of speak to what might need to be done by the group? Because some people in the group are animators, some people in the group are writers, some people in the group are ink and paint, you know, whatever. The thing I find really interesting about what we're talking about here is that without any doubt, this is the best idea. That's the best idea. And the reason it's the best idea is because then I can put in a bunch of notes to my to my team so that they know what the hell's going on. And the reality is that the documentation of the intent is baked into it. That's number one. The intent is baked in. If people don't understand what's wanted, it must be because I did a crappy job of explaining it. That's important because it places responsibility squarely where it belongs. Number two, no features have to be added to the software. None. We are in a day and age right now where a lot of people, I think it's safe to say, would find this to be very crude and ungainly. Maybe even ugly. Like you could kind of pretty it up a little bit with something like this, where you sort of create this demarcation zone, right? And people have been doing that with documents for untold decades. But the interesting thing to me, you know, because a lot of times I talk about software on this channel when I'm not animating. The interesting thing to me is that, objectively speaking, this is easily just as effective as any software, any addition to the software. But if I do an addition to the software, I'm going to introduce bugs. I'm going to break things that already work, et cetera, et cetera. That's normal. That's the normal case. It's not, you know, a surprising or horrible thing. It's just a thing. It's like an unavoidable thing. So maybe you'll get lucky. Maybe it won't happen this time. But basically, it always does. Whereas just putting language in the script that explains what we need to tweak or change or where we need to just pick up where we left off, blah, 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 that's easy. And it's already there. It just looks ugly. You know, this little button is pretty. Ah, how elegant. Ah, oh, buttons. Click. I just click something and magic happens. Except it's not magic. It's actually a really long list of steps that need to happen in the right order, or else you're going to have problems. Okay, so anyway, the last thing that happened was Luca's saying, it's not like we don't have confidence in you, Melchizedek. Yeah, confidence. Okay, that's what's going on. In the script, Melchizedek... Okay, we're right here. So TNR says, right, okay, this is a mistake. I'm not sure why that happened, but I'm going to hit Control-I to make that italic, and I am actually going to save this right now because that was... I remember putting that in the script yesterday. I don't specifically remember saving it, so it could be that I just didn't save it. Okay, so yes, now it's been saved. way it works is if you hit the save button, what happens is the script gets saved and then immediately and automatically reloaded. That's actually why it jumps back to the top. But there's a benefit to that because it allows me to check that the save operation actually took place correctly. So that's kind of important. So the next line is Mel looks askew confused. Okay, so I didn't really bake much confusion into this because it's really just a repurposing of this shot that I've used multiple times. So I think I would like to do something with his eyebrows, number one. And number two, I would like to bake some local shadows into these guys. And I think the way to do it is with Krita. So here's what we're going to do. Let's take this scene, re-export it without the background, bring that into Krita, bring the background into Krita, and then we'll apply some local shadows. Then at least this shot will be looking more correct and complete. And yes, Amar, hello. Okay, your approach is a lot simpler versus putting or saving a cookie file on your computer. Yeah, I mean, there's always there's sophisticated and elegant and clever ways to do things, and there's dumb, brute force, stupid ways to do things. And in my experience is that usually, I don't want to say one's better or worse, okay? Especially if the code's written well and it's not buggy and all that. I mean, if it works, right? This is what I'm saying. In practice, if you aggregate the time you spend dealing with a tool over a year or two, let's say, what I find is generally the crude, slow, ungainly, but understandable way of doing things, the people that do it that way in the long run are probably more productive, are probably running into less, not only problems, but also stress. Because it's stressful. If you have a tool that purports to do XYZ, and then you go to do XYZ and it kind of bites you in the butt, which I'm not saying it shouldn't happen. I mean, of course it's going to happen sometimes. There are glitches, there are bugs. But that, so we're not necessarily lambasting the coders for that, even though you may bring it to their attention, as happened with Tahoma2D. It was brought to their attention. Things were fixed. It made it into the nightly build. It's cool. Okay. So we're not, this isn't a criticism. It's as close as I can come to a clinical observation. It's what I said the other day about drawing, writing. Those are the biggies in the animation space. You know, voices are good, music's good, but you can get that elsewhere if you have to. But writing and drawing, the guy that writes and draws, completely agnostic of the tool they use, whether it's Blender, whether it's Adobe Animate or TV Paint, you know, name your product. The person that's going to be the most productive and happy, by the way, is the person who just churns away at drawing. That's my personal opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. I think there is a demarcation point where that changes. Like if the tools gain a certain level of, like a good example would be, probably the quintessential example in animation actually would be rigging. If you have a rig that's really robust and easy to use, where somebody can sort of get up to speed in a few minutes on how to move things around and whatnot, and that rig is fully realized, and the character that is being manipulated by it is also fully realized, then it probably is very true that now that we have that, actually animating the scenes in the character probably does go quite a bit faster. You know, but on the other hand, you're also introducing a whole new set of problems that have to be solved, such as different lighting that you wouldn't necessarily be struggling with in 2D, because you can always just add a tint, or, you know, there are things you can fix really, really quickly. So that's kind of my point. Is in the development space, we get we get, oh, I don't know, AI or whatever. We get tools and technologies that seem to move the needle forward, and they do move the needle in terms of what we expect. Changes our expectation of the tool. That's why AI is in a weird place right now, because my opinion is that the tool is potentially amazing, and yet in so many cases disappointing. And that's just because it's really in its, you know, early stages, right? There's a lot of kinks to work out. I don't want to say bugs, but kinks. Anyway, let's rock and roll and get going here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the Tahoma2D shot, which was the last one we did, this one here, and we're going to simply erase the background. Okay? So I'm going to hit Control R, or Control Shift R, I should say. Okay, so now we can come over here and we're going to create a new image in Krita that's going to be the standard Dave's HD, which is Broadcast HD. And then we're going to import the animation frames. Okay, well, how do we do that? Well, we're going to go to episode 3, to the last shot we did. And what we should find is that the render now does not include a background. Let's find out. Cool. All right, so now this is the whole sequence. Frame rate is 8. It looks like we've got 63 frames. If I hit 63, does it end it exactly there? Yeah, it does. Okay, so this would be, it's probably not a bad idea to save this immediately as 0394E. 0394E. Okay, we got that housekeeping behind us. Okay, so now what we do is we jump back to Tahoma, and the reality is we want this. Probably what I should just do is hit Control. Golly, what do I do? Actually, you guys, is there a never thought about this before. It would be something great as a feature for Rigify and Blender. Integrate the GP objects into the same workflow. Yeah, see, I'm not so sure though. I mean, there's some things that still have to be worked out with the grease pencil. We'll come back to that. I'm gonna, unfortunately, I mean, I guess I could. Actually, I think I had a hotkey for this back in the past. I believe it was the tilde key. Yep. Okay, cool. So, oh, it didn't turn off the correct, okay. It just turned them off in the viewport. That's my bad. Okay, so my question now is this. We have the first frame here, so maybe we can take a snapshot. Save image, let's do that. Yep, let's do that. Okay, so we'll call this, we'll just call this BKGD. So we can bring that into, wait, saving process frames, cancel, darn it. That's precisely what I didn't want to do. All right, let's be patient. Let's come back here. Okay, and nothing got saved, which is kind of strange. Okay, rather than struggle, let me just say, this is what I'm trying to do. Here's an image, isn't it? Here's the rendered version of the image. Well, we have a problem because we're still seeing a mouth. Okay, all I'm trying to do is I just want to render one frame. Because remember, this image here, this is massive. This image is huge. Huge. Okay. All I want to do is just render this first frame. That's it. So I can just freaking save it out as an image and bring it up into Krita. There's 800 different ways to do that, but what I'm looking for is render. Okay, so in other words, just so you guys understand, the question I'm asking right now is, how do I just do like you can do in Blender where you hit F12, you just render the current existing frame? How do you do that? Can you even do that in Tahoma? Or can you only render the entire sequence? That's question number one. And then question number two is, well, okay, if I have to render the sequence, which I did here, fine. How do I just save this first image as an image? Save images. That says save images. Okay, now this is interesting. And I can't see that well enough. That is weird. Episode 3. Okay, I know what happened. You guys, here's the problem. I looked here like an idiot. I should have hit F5. Yep. There it is. Okay, so let's take this. We'll delete those. Obviously, we don't need them. This can be dragged into Krita. So sorry I got confused there for half a second. Insert that as a new layer. And okay, that's interesting. It's basically not opaque. I never really thought about that. I'm going to hit the tilde key, hit the F key to fill this background with black, and put it behind the background. Problem solved. Okay, so now we can save our work. Okay, so why did we do all that? Well, I'll tell you why. We're going to now take these guys, put them in a group, Control G, and we're going to add a layer above them. Just one there, Dave. Don't get too eager, pal. We're going to alpha lock it. We're going to grab our B key Conan brush and start painting some shadows. That's what we're going to do. And then we will set their opacity correctly and whatnot. And then you can always hit the tilde key here and then the F key in order to fill that, by the way. B. I got Amar on the whole rigging topic now, and he can't snap out of it. Rigging is the quintessential. What do you want to say? It's the quintessential argument in the animation space for me. In that you pay a massive time cost up front, ostensibly for a more massive time cost savings later. That's what you're doing when you create a rig. Because the opposite is what? Just keep, redo the drawings from scratch every time or whatever, right? And I don't think there's a good answer. I really truly don't think there's a good answer because the industry, remember in about, I don't know, let's just take a stab here and say 2000, around 2000. Once somebody came out with a way to render hair, then entire freaking industries popped up around the idea of plugins or renderers or whatever that could do hair. Now, the only reason that was possible is because the technology that allowed them to render hair was published in scientific papers, and then somebody would repurpose the information that was gleaned from the papers into an actual tool, right? And so now all of a sudden, my point is that this is an industry that's as subject to hype as any industry. And once everybody's on the kick saying, oh, this is the important thing, this is what we must have, oh my God, if we don't have fur, how will we survive? I won't be able to keep up. I should just get out of the 3D animation business, circa 2000. I should just get out of the business completely because you know what? If I can't afford the tool that lets me render fur, if I can't afford Maya or, pick your poison, Houdini, even 3ds Max, if I can't afford it, then I can't keep up. And so, in other words, all those tools that are baked into 3ds Max, none of those matter. No, they don't matter. Why? Well, because I can't do fur. Oh, if I can't do fur, I can't keep up. And then everybody's going to take my job away, and I won't have any opportunity. Now, my point isn't the silliness of that, even though it is obviously silly. My point is that this is an industry where once we get on a kick that, this is the important thing, common sense and rationality just truly goes out the window. I need to hit Control Insert to put a keyframe here, and then what I need to do is roll back to when they get into this position right here. So that would be there. Okay, Krita, thank you for doing a pretty good job of keeping up with my scrolling. Okay, so now we got this. Now this is the disadvantage. Actually, you know what? I've changed my mind. I've literally just changed my mind right here. This is stupid. I'm going to just I'm going to reload this scene. I don't think I saved it. And I'm just going to bake in the second layer of shadows here. Because I mean, we've got this subtle animation with the plastic tool. Why the heck are we going to do it the hard way? Okay, so that's fine. It's changed my mind. How do we do it? Well, the first thing we want to do, we recognize that the everything's being modulated by the plastic tool. So I'm wanting to bypass the plastic tool for the purpose of doing the shadows. Hey, by the way, Amar, I don't know who else is here, but gosh, if I was going to suggest a Tahoma2D feature, I'm about to say what it would be. It may already be in the software. I don't know. But here's what it would be. I mean, look at what I have to do here. From a step-by-step sort of logistics standpoint. Okay, what I want to do is I want to take these layers that are all piped through the plastic tool, and then you have the same situation here. These layers are all piped through this plastic. So we got two instances of the plastic tool going on. Okay? And then it's a little more complicated because this plastic tool is then going through this dummy level, which is applying some scaling and translation to Luca, moving him into a different position. So the feature I would say is this. Total plastic tool bypass. Now maybe it's possible. If we deactivate the levels, does that make a difference? I'm pretty sure it does not. But I'm going to deactivate the levels and see if that makes any change. If it does, that solves our whole problem. Nope, it doesn't. So that just keeps it from being visible. That's what I thought. So anyway, the point being that what I have to do is I have to manually disconnect all of these and then reconnect them. Okay, how can we do this most sensibly? This is probably the most sensible. In this case, it would be... Well, there is no easy way. I mean, it only takes 20 seconds anyway, so let's just do it. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to bypass these, just bearing in mind that later I want to take these three and pipe them through here. Okay, same situation here. So let's stack these. So I'm just giving myself a visual cue so it's easy to remember what I did. This isn't particularly complicated. I probably wouldn't forget anyway, but... Come on, why is the third one always wanting to hesitate? Hello? Cuss you, Red Baron. Okay, fine. I'm going to delete that. Okay, that did the trick. What if I delete this? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, guys, we learned something new today. If you wanna disconnect from the plastic tool and reconnect to the table, just delete the lines that go to the plastic tool, because then apparently what Tahoma does is it says, well, you're disconnected right now. We got to hook you up somewhere. And so then it does actually the sensible thing, which is connects you directly out to the table. So cool, problem solved. Okay, so now all we got to do is create shadow layers for each of these guys, secondary shadow layers. These should all be okay. I mean, in the real-time view, probably should be deleted, or not deleted, but hidden, just as they were. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go insert. This should be the easiest way to do it, because truthfully, I only have to add the shadow on the first frame, because remember, all the animation is being done with the plastic tool. So what I want to do is add a vector layer, or vector level, boom, and just go ahead and just put those shadows on Luca. Very, very quick, very simple. I am not going to deal with masking, actually. I'm just going to keep all the shadows carefully inside of the character so I don't have to deal with masking. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. This probably should be something like that. Something like that. Okay, so then this needs to stretch all the way down to here. Boom. This needs to be set to, I don't know, probably 12. Okay. Just be aware, guys. Just be aware. When you render, this is going to disappear for reasons we talked about yesterday. So that's not a problem. It's just something to be aware of. So let's name this intelligently. Let's call this Luca Local SHD. Luca Local Shadows. Okay, I know I'm anal about this, but I actually like all caps on that kind of stuff. Mainly because it's easier to read. When I look at the screen, on the tablet screen, it's easier to read. On my other screens, it's not a problem, but this XP Pen tablet screen is actually a little bit fuzzy, so it is true that my eyes aren't quite what they used to be, but it's also true that the screen is not like the most amazing ever. So anyway, same situation here. Let's go ahead and just do what we were doing in Krita. And the difference is we're only going to have to do one frame of it here. And then all the extra work, actually it kind of harkens back to what I was saying before. You're just trading one batch of work for another. That's not what I intended to do. And, you know, sometimes it pays off and sometimes it doesn't. It just depends. Okay, so let's put that like that. I'll wrap that around there. I see something going down in the chat out of the corner of my eye, so I'll check it here in half a second. Call it Puppet Warp. Huh, hey Tom, set up another output and connect them to the... Yeah, well, I was thinking about doing that, actually. And then I'm like, well, visually it's not sufficiently complex to necessarily justify that, right? I'm like, if I just unplug them from the plastic tools, we're probably good. So in this case, it's a sufficiently simple situation that it's no big deal. Okay, so this, again, needs to be stretched all the way to the bottom. And then I'm going to actually go back to frame 1, just because I can. And just something to be aware of. At least just now. Interesting. Okay. So I'm not going to keep chasing this rabbit. I just noticed a moment ago. What happened? I stretched this down. I know what happened. I stretched this down to here. I never clicked in one of the cells, so I never told Tahoma, hey, by the way, you're on frame 64. So as far as Tahoma is concerned, it was still on frame 1. Hence, even though I'm looking at this, when I hit K, it didn't scroll back up. And that's because it didn't actually change what frame it was on. If I had clicked and then hit K, got it. Well, that is the whole thing, isn't it? It's knowing the order in which things happen. And then things start to make sense. Bodoink. Okay. So the way I'm going to do this, just so you guys know, is I'm gonna sort of build out my oh brother, what am I trying to say? This is going to take a little bit of doing in the compositing department. Okay, so I think these guys are okay. This golly, I'm going to actually say 14 here. Okay, so we'll leave that. That's fine. This we'll put it at 14 as well. Okay, so the gibberish I was spewing a moment ago, what it amounts to is this. Step 1 is to just restore things to the way they were before. That's the first step. Let's just get this all restored. And then we'll look at the compositing challenges, which are not going to be particularly onerous, but they do exist. Okay, so Luca Local Shadow should be somewhere here with Luca. So that absolutely should also pipe through the plastic tool, right? Boom. And I didn't name this one, so let's call this Tia Local Shadow. Okay, there it is. So that should also be piped through her plastic tool. Okay, that gets us part of the way there. Now the question really just becomes, are these shadows going to disappear once we render? It looks like they are. So now what we have to do is we've got to look at the effects schematic, which is definitely a bit of spaghetti. Okay. Let's clean things up here a bit. This is what we call in code space refactoring. You know, shuffling things around, getting them a little reorganized so that we can reevaluate and make sure we know what the heck's going on and aren't overly confused by the complexity of our situation. And that's really what you have to do. I mean, you look at this and go, okay, well hold on a second. What's going on here? Tia's shadow is blurred, and then it's being multiplied over top of the character. These shadows are they're set to be transparent. So it probably will be sufficient. I'm not sure about this, but I think it's going to be sufficient to actually move these nodes each down one notch and take the shadow and put it on the top. Okay, this should actually be, I mean, I'm thinking just from Z ordering, I'm pretty sure it's top to bottom. Okay, so this is her overall body shadow, which is multiplied by the character. The local shadows are inside of the character, so they don't need to be alpha locked or anything. Okay, so now do her shadows show up? They do. Okay, good. So that means all we need to do over here for Luca is take his local shadows and do the over thing. So over effects, I'm going to hit Control C, and then I'm going to come up here and hit Control V. So the shadow should be over top of the character, right? So there's that. And then that again gets multiplied by his shadow. This is just the dummy layer that does the scaling for Luca. Okay. Okay, so now the question becomes, why didn't Luca's shadows show up? Okay, Tom, you're here. Did you see anything that would lead you to have a suspicion? The first thing I would look at is that, somewhat non-intuitively, that this is just reversed. One of those dyslexia moments. Oh, I see what I did. Okay, remember what I said about this screen being a little blurry? I was supposed to be working with this, not this. All right. We're back to Snoopy here. I'm just smart enough to know how dumb I am. Okay, so the mouth goes over top of Luca, and Luca should actually be in channel 3. Sorry, guys. I'm being a little sloppy here. That's number 2. And then where is the Luca? The secondary shadow could be over or under the mouth. It doesn't actually matter. So that should do it. See that shape right there? See that shape right there? Kind of similar. Same idea. I think we're okay now. Yep, there we go. Groovy. And now we hit rendered. So I can say with pretty good confidence that if I had done this in Krita, it probably would have taken longer and probably not been especially better. But yeah, I like that. That looks pretty good. And I can always darken the shadows or whatever a little bit. So, okay, we can move on from that. Save all. What's next? Okay, we've got this clip of Melchizedek looking a little confused. Oh, okay, I remember what I was doing. Okay, so what I need to do, this is actually going to be a little tricky, friends. Here's what I'm going to do. File, Save Options, Save Scene As, and I'm going to change this from E to F. So I'm going to make a copy of this, 0394F. Okay. All right. Just so you know, when I render, it will automatically create the render folder and give the rendered images the F name. By changing the file name, it changed the way Tahoma calculates that. If anyone's wondering how the heck does that work, where the heck is that? I believe that is in the... Is it in the scene settings? Maybe it is in the... It might be in the camera settings. I don't remember. 'Cause it's one of those things you set it once, and if you get it right, you only ever have to set it once. You don't have to keep setting it over and again. I can't find the setting that has the list of path options wherein you are able to substitute the paths with variables. That's why this all works, and I don't even remember where you go to change that setting, so I can't freaking show you guys. It isn't output settings. Oh, maybe it is. Actually, my bad. I just need to expand out these. Let me see. Advanced settings? Maybe not. Pretty sure this is not what I'm looking for. Do you remember? Anybody out there remember? Where is the setting that it's a box? Oh, it's a box about this big, and there's half a dozen paths in it that you can put in the paths. There, of course, are defaults. I don't know how to get back to the stupid option. Project level stuff. Okay. Project. Yes. Thank you. Project management. Got it. Right. Project settings. There we go. That's it. Okay, yeah. So the key was this. Hopefully you guys can see this okay. Plus outputs, which is in the render settings. So if we go to output settings, we can close these all back up again. I'm just explaining this in case you guys want to do your thing, you know, maybe a slightly more clever way or whatever. This is what I did. I said, okay, I want Tahoma to say that no matter what I name my Tahoma scene. So I start a new scene, I give it a name. Doesn't matter what the name is. Whatever that name is, there's two questions. Question number one is, where is Tahoma going to save the scene? And question number two is, where is Tahoma going to save the renders? And the answer is, it's going to save the render in outputs. Okay, that variable, outputs, that could be helpful. Except, outputs is the variable, and then this is the value that gets inserted into that variable. The key to it all is this magical variable that's part of Tahoma2D, which is called $scene path. So by using this path here, scenes, episode 3, scene path, render, that means what Tahoma is going to do is within the Salt and Light project, there's a folder called scenes. Inside there, there's a folder called episode 3. And inside there, it's going to create a new folder that's going to have whatever I named the scene. And then within that scene, there's going to be a new folder called render. That's where it's going to put the images when you render. What are the images going to be called? They're going to be called exactly the same thing as the scene. And so the scenes that I create are simply saved in the root of episode 3. I could actually change this so that the TNZ file gets saved here. Like if I added scene path to this, like /scene path, then the TNZ file would get stored in the folder that got created. I didn't change anything with this, by the way. Okay. You might ask, why don't you do that, Dave? Why don't you store it in the individual file? I think that I don't even remember what the rationale was now, but I think what it was if I go into, you know, like episode 3 being, there's a lot of scenes, but of course that's inside of this that has twice as many because it's episodes 1 and 2. Anywho, I think the thinking was all these TNZ files are very easily, you can see them pretty quick and easy. Having them all in one place, I just decided I kind of like that better. So that's the story behind that. Okay, so what we need to do is, Luca has a line of dialogue. He says, "You could say monkey is our backup plan. You could say that monkey is our backup plan. Trying to find the Indian tonality, and then I have to, once I find the Indian tonality, it's very, very difficult because once I find it, I have to then also change the pitch for this boy, because this boy is only 8 years old and he's very, 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 very young, you see, and so he has the sort of Indian sort of accent. It might be similar to Sri Lanka or something of that nature. But once we find it, then we have to actually change the pitch up a bit higher so that he can actually sound like a young boy." That's the basic gist with Luca. Anyway, you say, why do you do that, Dave? Why do you do that? I do it because it's fun. Okay? Get over it, people. All right. So he's going to say, well, the last thing he says, well, it's not like we don't have great confidence in you, Mel. Right, TNR says, confidence. But you could say that monkey is our backup plan. Okay, how's he going to say that? Well, there are things we could toy with, such as, like, for example, it's possible we could run this clip in reverse and get what we're after. In principle, I would be remiss not to try that, because if it happened to work, it would be a terrible waste to have not done it that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just take this and reverse it. The only thing I know is he's going to say, you could say that monkey is our backup plan. Okay, watch. This is not going to work, but it might work. Okay, this actually could work. Oh my God, I can't believe it. You would have to start it here. And, okay, so I'm just throwing this out here so you guys can see what the creative process is like, because honestly, this actually could work. And the way it would work is I would slip this back to here. Blah, 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 blah. You could say it. Let me think about this. Okay, so the creative process is this. Luca would say, this all works. You could say that monkey is a backup plan. Okay, that worked perfectly well. There's no problem with that at all. The problem is that before he says it, we got TNR leaning in saying something. Right? So now the question I would ask myself is, okay, is there something TNR could say that actually makes sense there, especially if she said it, if part of what she said was over top of this. Now, in this, when I did this edit, I put in a marker here that says, but you could say monkey is our backup plan, which means that Luca's supposed to be already talking, which means this can be removed and you could cut it to right here. You could basically cut it to there. So here's what happens. It's just not like we don't have confidence. And she says, yes, yeah, confidence. But you could say that monkey is our backup plan. Okay, so we've got too many mouth shapes, obviously. But honestly, I'm thinking it would be, I'm deleting the Tahoma scene I was just working on, because why am I going to do it? If he starts talking here, you could say that monkey is our backup plan. Okay, there's only one problem, and this is where I need to bring it into Krita. Okay? The problem is I need to extend the final frame and then put a smile on his face. And I'm going to put a smile on her face too. The same, what we in Michigan would have called a shit-eating grin when I was growing up. They need to have, which is what Mel does. Remember in episodes 1 and 2, that's what Mel does. He'll say something that he knows is a little iffy or off or might raise eyebrows, and then he'll give a great big glowing smile. Okay, but this actually works. So this is, if there's anything valuable in today's live stream, this is it right here. This is the creative process in real time, where you say, look, why am I going to create this whole scene when everything I needed to do what I wanted to do is here? The only caveat being I just need to add one more frame in Krita to take this and stretch it and then put the silly grin on their faces. And maybe a blink or two, that'd be okay. Okay, so let me just look at this again. You could say that monkey is a backup plan. Okay. And then his mouth will close. So that's it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to double click this frame, or clip, I should say. Okay, I'm going to render this, and I want to render it as an image sequence. I'm just going to render it straight out of Vegas. Hold on a second. Let me make sure there's no overall. Hang on. Let me check something. Oh my gosh. I totally forgot about that. Do you guys realize that the whole time I've been working on this show, I've had a blur on the overall output? That is not necessarily a bad thing. However, for our purposes right now, I want to turn it off. So let's render this as a image sequence. We don't want to export it, we want to render it. Okay, and what we're doing is we're going to go to this image sequence. It's going to be ping. All right, and then all we're going to do is smack this image sequence into the RAM disk. Since we're here and thinking about it, let's also go, we can't. Stop everything. This is not good. I don't like this. I'm going to stop everything right now for just 20 seconds. Stop everything, slow down, go to the RAM drive, select everything, and delete it. All of this stuff should be not in there. Okay, other than obviously recycle bin. I do have hidden things showing and whatnot. Hidden, what am I trying to say? My God, I can't do two things at the same time. There is an option that allows you for these not to be seen. I choose to leave them on. Okay, that is what I am trying to say. Volume is not accessible. What the hell does that even mean? I don't even get it. Let's try this again. Is this becoming... Well, this is what I was talking about yesterday. You get these little interruptions in your flow, and it can be quite disruptive. Okay. Okay, so back to the flow. Well, we already created this scene, didn't we? So all of this is going to be erroneous, but we can go ahead and, just keep everything. File, watch what we're going to do here. We're going to import the animation frame, so let's go to the RAM disk. We're going to get it here, folks. I know Dave, he's a little frenetic. He's a little problematic at times. Okay, there it is. Let's get all of this, get rid of all of it. We don't need it. Okay, so then what happens is we get to here, and we are going to hold this frame. So let's save our work. Okay. Okay, why was that so choppy? Why is that so choppy? Hang on, guys. I need to look at this. Oh, I know why. Sorry, my bad. Some little detail I forgot. When we export it from Vegas, we're actually the Vegas timeline is actually at 24 frames per second. So if we're going to do what I just did, which I don't usually do, but if you're gonna, then you've got to run 24 frames per second. Okay, so now this is a hold, and let's just give it a couple frames, and then let's just start going in and making our fixes. Ready? Here we go. B key. Am I using the right brush? I think I am. Okay. Stop everything. Stop. For lip sync, this is useful. In the general case, you want this. I need to assign a hotkey or something to that. Okay, yep, that works. Okay, we're cool. And by the way, I guess I can steal this color from his eyebrows. So, okay, so we'll get rid of that. Boom. Boom. You could say monkey is our backup plan. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take this, and holy cow, where do we extend this to? I'm just going to put it out to 120 because I have no idea how long this scene's going to need to be. All right, so what we're doing is backup plan, bop, right there. Okay, that's where it feels good, right? Backup plan, bop. Okay, somewhere in here, let's just say 64. All right, and I'm actually going to redo that because I want to darken the line. Like so. Grab the eye color, fill that, B key. All right, grab that. Unfortunately, I need to reinforce this line a little bit. You know, all the fancy schmancy tools aside, there is something beautiful about working like this. Just one layer, flat. You can erase anything. You can change anything. The perfect situation is probably this, but with one other layer for the background. Then you can really do a lot, you know, to manipulate your scene. Okay, so he says that. Blah, 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 blah. And TNR, okay, by the way, just notably, I forgot about this little detail. I forgot that the background is not fully opaque, and so I need to put that in there. All right. I'm going to just put in a similar thing for TNR right here. Let's just run with it. Okay, so B key, oops, get rid of that. Grab that. And for Tia, it would be, you know, a little different. This is not something she normally does, so it's kind of a gag here, in a sense. We're just throwing in a little bit of a gag. Not a particularly funny gag. It's okay. It's not going to make you roll in your seat or anything. All right, so let's take this. Okay, this doesn't actually make great sense because Tianara isn't really in on the gag. But it made me laugh, therefore it's good. Okay, so what we're going to do is, let's end it here. Let's go here. Okay, so what did we accomplish? Well, we actually just created a several second long shot, didn't we? Okay, so let's go Control R, and this is going to be changed to E. So excellent, that went well. Okay, so we want 0394. Wait, that's not supposed to be E. This is supposed to be F. Whew, just dodged a bullet. 03-94-F, period. Boom, baby. So this will be one of the rare shots that we bring into Vegas that actually is going to be at 24 frames per second. So here we go. There it is. Open the sequence. We're going to leave it at 24, technically 23.976. If this was as long as a movie, that little fraction would make a difference. In a single scene that's a few frames long, it doesn't make any difference at all. So, boop, 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 boop. Boop 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 boop. Cool. All right. So he's like, it's not like we don't have great confidence in you, Melchizedek. Right, confidence. That edit is too long. Okay. Once, boom, that needs to pull back to like right about there, I think. Hello? Okay, stop everything. I think I just hit the... oh, this is very, 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 very bad. I know you guys are going, wait, what just happened? I just switched Vegas into multi-camera mode by inadvertently and accidentally hitting the wrong hotkey. And this came up months or years ago. And I remember it being rather obscure. Like I couldn't... It was a bear to figure out how to fix it. So here's what I'm going to do. What I meant to hit was Control-Shift-F, which ripple edits. I'm just going to keep moving forward. Because, in other words, where Vegas chose to put this on the menu, as I recall, was a little strange, and I had a heck of a time finding it. Maybe I'll do better this time. Tools, multi-camera, Control-Shift-D. Well, that explains it. I hit Control-Shift-D instead of Control-Shift-F. So, okay, cool. I can live with that. I need to remember that. There we go. Problem solved. Okay. So thank you, Tom. Tom gets credit for that. Because instead of getting pissed about it, I just said, okay, let's figure out what's going on. So Tom gets credit for that one. Yeah. Okay, we got a little bit of a hiccup right here in the edit. Okay, so that little grin at the end, it's just for effect because it really doesn't make sense. The only way this makes sense is if you say, okay, she's a nice person, and she's generally sensitive in this momentary context to the fact that they might be kind of insulting Melchizedek. That's all this is. But visually, as a little bit of a storytelling device, it works pretty nicely. So it's, it gives you a little bit of a chuckle mode here. So that's cool. We keep rocking. Keep rocking. Keep moving forward. All right. So now we look at the script because that shot, all of this is now irrelevant. And honestly, I think I want to delete it because I want to delete F. Because I never used it and I'm not going to use it. And if I was going to use it, I would actually just load up E and reuse that. So what do we do about that? This is a good example of the sort of housekeeping that's so easy to blow off, but you really don't want to blow it off. And to be, fair and balanced, what we could do, what I normally do, generally with file management, it's very common for me to have an archive folder inside of a folder so that if I want to chuck something, I do hold out the small possibility that at some point in the future I may want to get it back. Here are the corrupt levels that I was working on with Tahoma2D when we were looking for the fill bug. Those can go in the archive as well. So you get the idea. These are totally erroneous. Those I know are erroneous. However, just to be safe, let's jump up to the episode 3 folder and see what those are. Huh. They seem to be blank. They seem to be blank. Sorry for sneezing, guys. I did take off my headphones. All of these can be deleted, actually, unceremoniously. Okay. So this guy can be moved off to the other screen. For now, the preview is no problem. What we need to do is look at the script. So this went well. This is wrong. This needs to be saved as, not E. golly, this is kind of bad. Well, like I said, housekeeping. Once you start getting sloppy with it, it will spin out of control in no time. So this is not supposed to be scene E, it's supposed to be scene F. Okay, so I'm going to close that, and then there's E. That's what it was before I modified it. Okay, so again, technically, if we're going to do the housekeeping, this actually should be deleted because E came from Tahoma, not Krita. Okay, now we're back on track. Where do we go from here? Well, you could say monkeys are backup plan. Mel turns and sees monkey skid and change direction as tavern keeper rants in the background. Okay, so how would this play? We've really reused this too much. So I want to think of something here. What if we actually took this, moved it downstream here, and moved this over here? So that this is just a really brief break. So she says confidence. Blink, blink. And then this is better edit. I mean, let me just be emphatic about this. There is no question this is a better edit. So what we had was we had this and this and this. And I said, wait a second. The next thing that wants to happen is for Mel to look to the right because he sees the monkey doing the Johnny Quest skid. So why don't we just put that there and then move everything back here? So he's like, well, it's not like we don't have confidence in you, Melchizedek. Right, confidence. But think of, you could say monkey is our backup plan. Okay, the only thing I would change then, because like I said, the problem here is we're kind of reusing this shot too much. Hence I wanted to break it up. If we look at the overall pacing of it, let's find out. Let's start here and just ask ourselves, is this okay? I don't know why it wouldn't be, but let's check it out. By the way, that little shot of them waving him over, I probably want to redo that sometime. Okay. Oh, okay, let's do that. Wait, what? Get back here, you little rodent! What is he doing? Well, don't take this the wrong way. Take what way? It's not that we don't have confidence in you, Melchizedek. Right, confidence. It's just, you could think monkeys are a backup plan. I gotta tell you, from a drama, or, I mean, it's comedy in a way, but dramedy, let's call it. From a dramedy storytelling standpoint, this feels really good to me. This feels like a pretty tight edit. The attitudes are coming out nicely. So this was totally the right choice. This tightened up the edit and gave us another opportunity to use that clip. And the only thing wrong with it that I just fixed is that he needs to be looking at them, and then we see the shot of monkey. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, let's go back here. Let me open up Blender. I'm pretty sure we could just do the Johnny Quest slide and have monkey scream out of frame, and it would probably work just fine. So he sees monkey skid and change direction as tavern keeper rants in the background. And then what would happen is that would, let's go back over here. Sorry guys. Okay, so what would happen is you'd see this shot of monkey, and then what Melchizedek would do is he would come back to them, and then he would say, you have a point. So we need okay, so the question is, first of all, is there any opportunity for dialogue here in this direction? That actually might work. Let me see. You have a point. Okay, so we have to cut this. Darn it, I gotta hit this. Not the space bar, but the enter key. Otherwise it'll return to where I started, which is exactly what I don't want. Yeah. Okay, right there. This, and I don't love this mouth shape. Boom. Let's stop it there. And then let's grab that for you have a point. Yep, there we go. And then you could have his eye glance back again. So he's going to say, you have a point. Okay, stop. Problem. Why does that feel so so abrupt? Why does that seem to be playing way faster than you would expect? 8 frames per second. I don't know if I'm going to fixate on that at the moment. You have a point. And then everything seems to be accelerated there. Very strange. These are definitely set to 8 frames per second. Well, I can always slow them down too, if I want to, if it just doesn't feel right. Let's try that. You have a point. That feels way better. Okay, so now this is obviously too long. Okay, is resampling off? Yep, resampling's off. So you have a point. Okay, the only thing that's bugging me is I'm just kind of wanting... Well, okay, I see what I did. I put the blink there. Yep, that blink does not belong. And the dialogue is nowhere near long enough. I am actually going to stretch it because I still feel like the mouth shapes are moving by too quick. Yeah. Okay. I'm getting discombobulated now because every change I'm making is making it worse, and I'm not in the right frame of mind to grok out what's going wrong here. So I'm just gonna, I know I can fix this like stupidly easily, but not now because I'm actually not wanting to do this. I'm wanting to get back to getting this shot in there, and then I can go touch that one up. Okay, so this is what we're looking for. Monkey doing the Johnny Scoot thing. This is completely... Oh, I see. So we're gonna have him witnessing that. Then he says you have a point, and then we'll go to this. Then we'll pop this in here, and then the whole basic vibe is let's get the heck out of here. That's pretty much what's going on. Okay, cool. So how do we want to do the Johnny slide? Could do it right here in Blender. I'm not really kind of wanting to. I think I'm gonna go ahead and do the. I'm just going to do another Tahoma scene. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, I haven't been looking at all at the chat. I'm staying focused there. You can screenshot. Let me see here. Oh my gosh. The way CSP does the plastic feature in the new version of CSP looks way more simple to use than in or another camera. These are ideas, not instructions. Right. Yeah, that's all back a ways. Project level. Okay, so we got through that. So you can screenshot her frame and put in a layer above where she leans in to stop the speaking and lean in. Would she do an eye dart towards Luca and then smile? Eye dart, blink, then smile. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't hurt, right? That would be one way to do it. I think that the way that it goes blink, blink, the rhythm of that feels good. So for me, that's working fine. Let's just stick with that. Okay, what would this be? This would be 03-94-G. Create scene. Cells and, I'm going to actually look at this. Cells and columns do not have drag bars by default. Cells and columns do not have drag bars. Click an exposed cell or non-empty column and then drag to move it. Select an empty. Okay, so it looks like quite a bit of work has been done on just the what is the term? The workflow of, like moving things around. Anyway, what we need to do is reproduce this. So we could just hit F12. Image, we could just save that as a RAM disk. Boom. That's all we need. And then for reference purposes, we come over to the RAM disk. Again, as before, these all actually need to be deleted. Is this what I want? I don't think this is what I want. Yes, it is. Okay. So just throw this in here as a reference. And then what we're going to do is we're going to basically trace over it and then do the Johnny slide thing, which is going to be an animation exercise, basically. So I'm going to use the tighten up brush. Hello. I guess I want shift spacebar. Okay. Shift spacebar. Boo-doo boo, boo-doo boo, boo-doo boo. Yeah, it's kind of amazing. Today, I've been live streaming for an hour and a half. In that hour and a half, we've done effectively, let's see, if I give enough room for the scoot thing. I mean, we're actually close to the 10-minute mark, or 10-second mark, I should say. Not amazing, but not horrible. Okay, so there's gonna be a little indication there. And boom! I made it too skinny. Boom! Better. Close enough for rock and roll. Okay. Too wide. Erase. Okay. Again, little bit of erase. Groovy. Give him a little bit of a pot belly on this shot for no apparent reason other than for the heck of it. Trying to keep this as loose and silly as possible. Okay. He does have this in his hand. Right? Okay. So now what we'll do is we'll just fill monkey, and we have a leak. Let me check that. Okay. B key, zoom in. There it is right there. Hello. Yep. Okay. If you don't know how I did that, it's the fill check tool. Control Shift F is my hotkey. I don't know if that is a system-wide hotkey. A default hotkey for the fill check tool. I think it might be, but I don't know that for sure. So you say, what are you doing putting in all these insane colors that don't make any sense at all? Well, because this is Tahoma2D and we can change these colors after the fact. Right? Blue color. Actually, we can hit the R key to sample that. And then this color is supposed to be just a little lighter and just a little yellower, basically. Okay, that's not too bad. I'm feeling like I want a little more illumination here. And probably, yes, probably here as well. I think that's cool. This, I'm actually feeling like in this case that his ink line should be a little bolder. Okay, so now again, this is an animation exercise. We'll worry about the we will worry about the man, I'm on one of those brain farts. Well, I think it was the smoke. The smoke, the background's no problem because he's basically we're looking at dirt, you know, we're looking at the ground. Background's easy. Smoke will be a bit of an adventure. And then he does need to turn direction and run. Okay. If that's the case, why don't we... well, let me see. On this one, do we have any... We don't have any pencil lines. So let's go here, and what we'll do is we'll use the pencil test brush, because then we can always do a selective erase on it. Right? Okay, and I'm going to turn on one onion skin. Okay, so now there's a couple things to keep in mind here. Everything from a timing standpoint is not going to be this, because if you think about it, this is where he would end up. It wouldn't be where he would start. So the Johnny slide would actually be starting back here. Okay. Given that that's true, any drawings that are going to take place after this would want him to be in this position on this frame, because that's where we're working from. So what we'll do is, I'm actually going to do it this way. Let me think about this. I'm going to use this. I call it a shadow material mainly because it's got auto paint. You know, like this is what I would use if I was doing shadows the way they do it in traditional anime practice. I don't do shadows the way they do them, but if I did, this is the material I'd be using. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm doing sticks and balls. What does that mean? It means we're definitely going to have one frame extra that probably isn't necessary, because what I want to do now is start getting the sticks and balls. And it doesn't matter what I do here. This is all about animation fun. Okay? So there's basically his knee. And I have no idea how this is going to pace out. The important thing here, in other words, is the timing going to be right? Is he going to be held too long in a position where it doesn't look natural, or this sort of thing? Okay? That doesn't matter. Why? Well, because it's easy to insert or delete frames. You know? Okay? All I'm trying to do is now I'm trying to anticipate where is he going? I'm going to actually cock this arm back up this way. I'm totally spitballing. I'm just totally spitballing. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, if he was going to do that, let's just focus on the main arc of the body for now. If that's the case, we don't want to do that. That's going to be like a tween. That's going to be too long. We want to see the tail here. Okay, so now just for fun, we're going to see how that feels. Not bad. Not bad. Oh my God. I'm actually kind of shocked at how well that came out. Okay. So what's actually going to happen here is we're going to move all this down. And then what we want to do is, let's not use the plastic tool or anything like that. We're trying to do the Johnny slide. If we're going to do the Johnny slide, then what we want to do probably is come down here and just put in a keyframe. An important thing to know, by the way, about Tahoma2D, actually really important. If you're going to if you're going to animate something with these other tools and then go back and do more drawing, just remember, once you use the plastic tool, if you want to keep drawing or modifying your drawing, you either need to do it over here where you're actually operating on the drawing as opposed to the scene in the X sheet. You either have to do that, or you have to disconnect the plastic tool. That is not true with the transform tool. If I use the transform tool, which is the A key, and I move things around, I can put this wherever I want, I can still go back into this shot and accurately draw where my drawn lines show up where I expect them to. Okay, so the animate tool, is that what they call it? I don't even know if that's what they call it. That's the selection tool. Yeah, they do call it the animate tool. So the animate tool does not impede the drawing process, but the plastic tool does. So that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, one thing I noticed here, I don't know why his bag is not filled. Or maybe it is. Maybe it is, but it's just such a... Okay, it is. It's just such a similar color, and it's actually supposed to have a slightly blue tint to it. So there we go. Okay, so why did we do it this way? I'm working backwards. What is the Johnny slide? Well, the Johnny slide, the one thing we know for sure is he's going to start back here. Okay. So what we need him to do at 8 frames per second is go here, back up a little bit, go here, back up a little bit. Probably these need to accelerate. So I'm going to say probably one more time, going back a little bit, and then here. The timing of this may be completely whacked. I have no idea. It's probably all happening too slowly, but let's see if it works. Not even close. Not even close. Okay, so in other words, we just learned that if you're going to do the Johnny slide, these moves backwards need to be substantial. I don't know. It looks like they actually didn't even register, so I'm not really sure why that would be the case, but there it is. All right, so what I'm going to do is move this down a little bit so that I can actually spread out that one keyframe. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, it's the right idea, but it all happens way too slow, which is exactly what I said. So I'm going to take these keyframes. But there's not really a way. I mean, you probably could do it in the function editor, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do this the kind of old school way, which is I'm just going to move everything closer together and hope that it kind of sort of... So in other words, these are evenly spaced more or less. That's okay because the amount of distance that Monkey traverses in each of these is changing. It's still too slow. I think the solution in this case is to have a shot that we run at 12 frames per second. Okay. I mean, honestly, it looks pretty good to me. Anybody have a comment? All right, so I'm going to hit Control X on this to move that stuff all up a bit. And let's see what we get. Golly, that is actually really cool. Okay. So I'm going to say, let's turn this off. And then the question becomes, do we want to pencil test this? I'm thinking we do. Let's go ahead and so that'll become our guide. And what I'll do is I'll do the pencil test, and then I'll erase the blue lines selectively, leaving the pencil test behind, which I can then ink over top of. Get it? And by the way, we can make this even a little easier right now by just turning these lines fairly transparent. There we go. Now, frankly, having done that, makes me wonder if I shouldn't just go ahead and skip the pencil test, but there it is, friends. There it is. So now we get to just freaking draw it for a bit. Sticks and balls, friends. Sticks and balls. At this pencil test stage, I want to get the spacings right. Keep in mind, remember we said this frame is essentially a duplicate of this frame. The only thing that really changes there is his eyes. His head. His head, kind of changes orientation a bit. So, frankly, we could do this and we would be okay. And then we'll start actually getting into real animation in the next frame. Okay, so there's that. And we want to let's turn this off. Aha. Okay, so this is the only thing I kind of don't like about Tahoma2D. I don't really like the fact that these fight with each other, and you actually can draw over these lines if you really press hard and really insist on it. It's a bit, I don't know, I'm not sure what the rationale is for that, but because I can't think of a situation other than maybe painting where you would want to lay in color in any way, shape, or form and have it underneath. There's times when you do, like I said, in painting, but in normal drawing, it's... Anybody know? Like Tom, you're probably around. What's the rationale for that? Or is this just a bug that nobody's gotten around to fixing? It's been there ever since OpenToonz was released years ago. It's never not been there. So there's something weird about the compositing of line art in terms of how things overlap. Are they both on the same level? Yes. Yeah, this problem always manifests on the same level. Obviously, putting things on separate levels would mitigate the problem. Definitely. But yeah, I've just always thought it was weird. Darren, for your sketch levels, if you use normal raster level instead of Toonz, you won't have that issue. Okay. But, of course, if that means that, therefore, you're going to be doing your ink and paint on a Toonz raster level, in other words, what you just said, it does make perfect sense. It assumes you're going to be using two levels. And the whole reason the problem manifests is because I'm trying to use one level. So what that really means is this problem doesn't exist, actually, because you really probably should be using two levels. Anyway, I get it. That's always been the case. And that's basically what we've always done. We just use multiple levels, right? And, performance in Tahoma is pretty darn good, and so you can let the levels start to pile up, and you don't pay too heavy of a cost for that. I hate this anatomically. I hate this, just because it looks kind of, I don't know, a little fruitcake for my taste, I suppose. And by the way, let's use this frame to move the bag as well. Let's keep things moving a little bit here. I'm not going to worry about his tail until I think I'm just going to conscientiously neglect the tail for this whole sequence. I just don't think it matters. And besides, if I decided later that it did matter, it's literally a matter of adding a tail on another layer and just freaking drawing the tail, probably with the Smart Raster paintbrush. Okay, so that is just a little twist where the foot would sort of be appearing. Same situation here. We can be fairly sloppy about this, actually, even in the final ink and paint, is the truth of the matter. Why? Well, because it's all moving so fast. Everything's going by so quickly that you're not going to see any of the details. It's all just going to look like a blur. All right, so here we go. Let's start really rocking here and get to it. Boom, boom, boom. There's some nostrils. But yeah, this is just, all I'm saying is this is quite distracting. You've got these lines, and the new lines show under it. If there was just a setting that you could set to say, hey, by the way, don't do that, that would be cool. That's all that's really necessary. But there it is, friends. It is not rant worthy, that's for sure. Okay, so let's go with this. Blah, 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 blah. Gotta keep it moving here, friends. Keep it moving. We're being exaggerated. We're trying to do like the Warner Brothers thing here. Trying to keep it loose and a little bit silly. Okay, so back here we got the bag. That means that here's going to be the hand. Here's going to be the top. The bag's going to drag behind, obviously. Da-da-da-da. And then it might actually bump up a bit. You know, a little bit of squash and stretch as the force of his arm goes up. Okay, and then he literally in no time is taking off. So let's do it this way. Let's put in essentially his head, and then let's get that. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to do this. Well, stop, pause. If I'm going to do that, then let's at least take a moment and kind of get this right. So I'm going to turn off selective so it actually gets rid of the sketch lines as well. Okay, B key. So we know his ear goes there. We know his eye goes there. The part that's a little off is probably his snout. So there's his nose. He's got that color demarcation line, if you will. Hit the S key, grab that, Control C, jump over here, Control V, paste this over here. We're going to actually allow this to stretch a bit. Control C and Control V. Obviously, we're basically off the page. B key. All right. So now what we want to do is essentially get the overall arc and shape of the body more or less correct, which is like a teardrop, more or less. Da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Okay. So tail. 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 All right. Okay, so he's going to be springing off. Let's see, the foot is actually anchored there, which means this is going to be a crinkle, which means this is going to be an extension, and probably the foot would actually come up in the air. And then, I mean, you could argue about whether the leg should actually zip forward again that quickly. It probably shouldn't. But we are talking about sort of a cartoon spin and run here. So this leg is here. And we're going to say, let's leave it anchored there. And if we're going to leave it anchored there, then it's going to be basically in 3D. Boom. Here's a paw, if you will. This is going to really stretch out like crazy. And I'm going to do it this way, just because there's no right answer. And if it feels good, it is good. Okay, this bag, where's it going to go? Well, let's put the bag here, and it's going to drag behind. Let's put the bag here, and we'll let it kind of follow, right? Okay, blah, blah. Well, if you're going to put the bag there, then that means the fist is here, which means the fist is here. That was just as wrong as can be. There we go. That's what we're after. Put that there. Go, go, go. And da-da-da-da. Okay, so clearly this is going to be hidden on that one frame behind the bag. That could be there. Now we have to say, what's this going to do? Well, there's where his hand was. So let's say the hand comes up a little bit more. And now we have to resolve the distances here of the forearm to the back rear, you know. So, boom, we'll say this goes to here, which means that's that. And just because I don't know what else to do, I'm going to go like this. I'm going to just say, okay, this is the old running person kind of thing. All right, let's see what we got. What do you think, friends? Now, just for sanity's sake, we probably should stretch that out a bit. Is the Johnny slide working? I say no. I say the Johnny slide needs to be, let's take this, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move these a little closer together because I actually want him, well, wait a minute, that's a bit of a, well, no, I guess that's okay. So I want him to slide in a little bit before the thing happens. Okay, so how do we make this better, maybe? I would say by hitting the animation tool and actually just moving this way back so that he's really covering ground. Look at that. So that's the Johnny slide. All right, let me look at the comments, see what you guys are thinking on this. And by the way, thanks for Tom and Darren for your input here. Colors map to palette entries. It doesn't happen for you. You can see order materials. It could be. Could be. It wouldn't have anything to do with the stack here, though, because obviously what I'm using is on the top of the stack, and what I'm painting over is this. Now, significantly, this, well, hang on a second. I was going to say this is not a my paintbrush, but it actually is. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter that much. It's not that big of a deal. It's an interesting thing to kind of ponder, but basically, I really like the way this is coming out. Now, there's one other problem that I just noticed, and that is that this little guy is supposed to have a yellow belly. So I'm going to hit the V key, and we're on areas only. That should be like that, and honestly, really, his paws are supposed to be. If you see his palm, you know, then of hand or foot, then it's supposed to be this skin tone, right? Basically, this is skin, this is fur, is the gist of the story. Very interesting. I mean, if we set this at 24, that's crazy. I think 12 is a good middle ground. I think there's a reason why the Warner Brothers cartoons were done at 12 frames per second, basically. Yeah, they did ones. They did ones occasionally, but vast majority of their work was done on 2s. There's a reason for that. It's got to do with the economy, and it's got to do with snap. Okay. Excuse me. Let's grab the... Okay, so what I said we were going to do, we're going to hit erase. I'm going to do this step by step so you guys can see what the thinking is here. We're going to do selective, and we're going to do frame range. What's the frame range? Why is... This is interesting. I've never... What is the... It's almost like a tweening thing related to the framing. I don't know about that. I'm just going to go with linear. Okay, so what should happen is I'm going to draw a circle, and then Tahoma's looking for me to draw another circle, and then everywhere in between the two circles and in between all the frames, the blue lines got erased. So that's why we use frame range. Normally I have that off. If he's sliding, the weight of the slide is missing, but that could be intentional. He's not really falling. It's just the angle. I mean, from whence are we watching this happen? We are watching this happen from about, if a human being was standing right here, 6 foot tall human being is standing right here looking down, this is what they would see. There's no particular reason for it. When they did the Johnny slide, it was, the idea of the Johnny slide is, and this is an homage, obviously. The idea of the Johnny slide is, for economy reasons, we only want to draw one picture. That was the purpose of the Johnny slide. You only want to draw one picture, and the way you do all of your animation is essentially by the way you time the positioning of that one picture. That's what we did here. And if I remember, I'm doing this all from memory, by the way. I'm not referring to the original. Again, this is from Johnny Quest. But the idea is he slides in and then backs up a notch, slides more, backs up a notch, slides more, backs up a notch, and then finally comes to a demarcation point where it's going to turn. I give it 1 frame, since we are at 12 frames per second, and then out of here. Okay, there is an argument to be made for this, by the way, which is step. We could switch this to 2. What is it? Let's do that, just to see how it feels. Okay. Oh, horrible, horrible. Not even close. Nope. Well, it just goes to show when you animate with 12 frames per second in mind, you know, it's probably going to look best at 12 frames per second. It's pretty much the long and the short of it. So, you know, and remember too, when you watch the show, this all goes by really fast. I mean, psychologically, you're in the mindset of whatever the previous storytelling was. Meaning you're watching this, you're flowing with this, and everything's moving right along. Like a word of explanation, and then boom, slide, done. It's over that quick. It's literally over that quick. This would be, in fact, I'm going to adjust the timing. So this is what's going to happen. Johnny slide, boom, that's it. The whole thing. That's going to be something in the neighborhood of 1 second. Oh no. A straight slide would be fine. I mean, when I originally drew it, that's all I thought of. Nope, I'm doing the Johnny slide. I actually think it's just as an effect. It is an homage. There's that too, but mainly that's what I want to do. That's what I'm going to do on this particular deal. Okay, so B key. Okay. What time is it? Man, it is noon? That is insane. Okay, what is going on here? Oh, gotcha. It's that blasted animation tool tripping me up. Okay, so let's take the pencil test material and just turn it way the heck down just so it's less of a distraction. Okay? Now let's move quick. Let's go to the B key. Okay. Okay, I give up. I give in. Fine. There. I don't want to fight with it. It's not worth it. Okay. I'm just getting the images blocked in. Hmm. Hmm. Cool. That'll work. All right. Now, it is 12:02. Let's see what we can accomplish in as quick as possible. I'm going to be a little careful here because the characterization on his head does matter. Remember, by the way, we can sample the colors from the other level in order to get the skin and the hair color and all that. Okay, what we do here does not require great detail. I guess I'm going to redo that one because, again, it all goes by so fast. And I would just as soon keep it loose. Boom, boom, and boom, 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 boom. Nope, that last line did not work, friends. It didn't work. Okay, this is going to be the lid thing. Lid, top is what I meant. Top of the bag. Here's the bag, and image number 1 done. Okay, image number 2. Boom, let's do the hard part first. Boom, boom, boom. Shoom, 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 shoom. Let's turn this on for a moment. Okay. Knew it. Wow, okay. Let me take a look here. What the heck? Ah, right there. All right. I know this looks pretty rough with the fill check tool on, but that's okay. We really don't care. Especially operating at high speed like this. Okay. This obviously is not a closed shape, but it's not gonna be for now. Okay, grab this, Control C. Might as well. Sorry, my mistake. Control V. S key, boom. Boom. Yeah, I actually forgot that I was on a separate level there. Okay. We drew the yellow belly just by drawing the color. We didn't have an outline around it, if you recall. So, like I said, this all can be pretty rapid fire. There's his knee. So again, I emphasize anybody that has a beef with the poor level of detail here, remember this is 12 frames per second. This is all going by really fast. Really fast. This is problematic. Up, not anymore. Boom, boom. Okay, cool. Let's get this. Boom, boom. Bit strange, but like I said, that's what you can do when you're moving quickly. So nah, I know the sketch made it look a little. This can all be sloppy because it's going by really fast, but I don't know. You just kind of learn what you can get away with. All right. Why is this not a closed shape? Right there? Yep, sure enough. So I said the other day that Tahoma's killer feature is the relatively unheralded feature of the fill check tool. Definitely super useful. We're getting there, friends. Little too big there on the tip of the tail. It's more like that. This is some crazy contortions he's going through. But let's face it, that's what you have to do if you're going to change direction literally 180 degrees in mid-stride. Trust me, friends, it'll look good when it's done. Okay, 1, 2, 3. I don't even remember offhand if monkey has 3 fingers or 4. I know that sounds insane and ridiculous, but it's the truth. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it's 3. But it could be 4. Why, it could be most anything. Okay. Little smack there, little smack there. You're really stretched out. This is where everything's really going. Boom. I know, looks awful, doesn't it? But that's part of the effect. Let me check one thing here. Yeah, see, this one has to be, you could actually even do it like this. This is hearkening back to, in Richard Williams' book, he does talk about, you can actually break joints and flip things around completely in the wrong direction and stuff, and it will still look good. They used to do that with Goofy when they animated Goofy. He would walk, and his legs and his feet would literally turn around backwards, like facing the wrong way. But if it goes by quick enough, it actually looks, if you freeze frame it, it looks completely wrong, but in point of fact, it feels right. Okay, and this is going to be, okay, 1, 2, 3. Because what you're really responding to here is the continuity that your brain senses as the motion takes place. Your brain is filling in the blanks. That's why you can get away with murder on stuff like this. Oops, I didn't want to close that. Okay, close that. Okay, let's see. I don't know if this Tahoma, I guess Tahoma does do it as a fill check thing. So I'm going to take all of these, and I think what I'll do, I'm not going to chuck them. I'm just going to move them over here and just turn them off completely, so I don't have to see them. And this can be deleted forever. Okay, brief pause here for half a second. So what we want to do here is obviously, well, actually, speaking of the fill check tool, we probably should go in and just make sure we don't have issues that are going to bite us later at fill time. Okay, so this should have that. Okay, got it. Good. Okay, turn the fill check tool off. And what we'll do is we'll go up to here. And actually, here's how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to grab these 3 colors, hit Control C, and I think I can actually just pick a spot here and hit Control V. Yeah, it just sticks them in there. So there you go. All right. Fill. Well, that was easy. Well, that's why I use the fill check tool. That's why I use the fill check tool. Okay, so now we'll come back here, and I guess we'll do the bag first. Did-imp. Did-imp, dimp. Did-imp, dimp. Okay. Back to this. Boom, boom. Come on. And boom. And now we can do this. We'll come back and catch the... Okay, that's definitely not going to work. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through... I mentioned the other day, this is where the fill check tool does kind of fall apart. Because if you have an interior shape that's not closed inside an exterior shape that is, then you really have no way of knowing if it's going to fill properly or not. In this particular case, the fastest solution is probably just to hand paint it rather than sit and fight with the fills. Okay, so this, we need to get that little palm in there, and that's done. Okay, that's turned the other way, that's turned the other way, that's turned the other way, so now we can just deal with this. And we'll have to think about what the background's going to be. Okay, next. I don't know if this will work or not. I guess it will. That's already done. Okay, and now what we need is the belly. So let's go here. Right. Okay, grab this, V key, and that's all we need. Oops. Little sloppy there, Dave. Little sloppy. I'm not going to sweat this too much because, again, it's only taking place on one single frame. You know, I made a very good butternut squash bisque yesterday. It's like we've got all these butternut squash from the garden. And tons of like dehydrated kale and Brussels sprouts. We got green beans. We got all the stuff from last year. A lot of it's dehydrated, right? And the dehydrated soup, I mean the soup that's based on dehydrated material, is, when I do it as a gumbo, it's pretty good, but it sits kind of heavy. Anyway, so the bisque, I found a recipe, which I normally don't do, but I found the recipe, and the bisque recipe said you want like a cup of vegetable stock. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take the soup that I made, which is basically a minestrone, and I'm just going to throw a cup and a half of that into the Vitamix, and we're going to call it vegetable stock, even though it's not. The soup came out really good, and I've got enough. And I mean, butternut squash is super good for you. Super good for you. Yeah, the only caveat I would do, I actually think right here, what we should do is stop and let's just render this and bring it into Krita, because I definitely think that motion blur on these few frames would be good, and then we'll just go ahead and do the background over here. So this should be, well, what do we got? We've only got 24 frames. Well, we've really got 19. So let's call it in Krita though, just for kicks. We'll call it 24 frames, but at 12 frames per second. All right, so let's just rock and roll. Import the animation frames, add the images. Where do we get them? Well, they should be here. Boom. So we'll select all. Boom. Bring those in. Okay. Beautiful. Okay, and then here we just need to insert a blank keyframe. And now what we want to do is we want to do filter, blur, motion blur. So this is going to be, that's essentially pointing the right direction. So we'll do 80 here. And I'm reloading it because I want this number to be a little smaller this time. So we'll go 80, we'll go 60-ish. Somewhere in there. And here we'll go just a little bit. Boom. Okay. Okay. File. Save. And we're going to save this as episode 3G03-94-G. Okay. Which means now, when we render, we are effectively, right now, as we speak, overwriting everything we just exported from Tahoma2D. So this has served its purpose well, and we're done with it. All right. So, how do we do a shadow? Probably, I mean, there's more than one way to do it, but I'm going to say let's go ahead and add a copy of this layer. Notice that Krita didn't pin it to the timeline, so we have to do that manually. Okay, we're going to grab all of these, and we're going to hit Control M, and we're just going to turn this down to black. Multi-frame, which means every frame of it is going to be turned black. So now when I play it back, everything's going to be black. Okay? Now, let's think about this for a minute. There's multiple ways we could use this, so I'm going to actually duplicate this black layer because this is going to be quite useful. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take all these and put them in a group. Then this one is going to be alpha locked so that we can then take the, actually we're going to add a transform mask and we're going to transform this like that. Okay? And then this particular layer, and by the way, let me double check that. Boom. Yeah, that's probably what we want. Okay, I like that. We'll flatten the layer. Okay, so that effectively baked all that in, and then we turn the level down, and wango bango, now Monkey has some nice local shadows, right? Boop. Boop. Perfect. Okay, well, what about a shadow underneath him? Well, let's go down here, pop that under, and now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add a transform mask, and this is going to be pretty ugly. We're going to flatten it like the Dickens, and it could be that that's all we have to do. Okay, because he changes direction, though, that's not really true. So let's take a look at this. So what I'm going to have to do is put this here, and to be clear, it could be that using a transform mask is, or even using the drawing as the basis for the shadow, might kind of be a bad idea. But that's okay. We're going to go to the transform mask, we're going to go to the animation curves, and just put in one keyframe. Boom. Okay, now as we go forward in time, let's select this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, right there. This is, like I said, this is probably like a really dumb idea. But as long as we keep these anchored together, like that, we're probably okay. Because remember, the transform mask, you can animate it. All these animation keys are being baked into it right now. So, yes, it takes half a second to do it. Is it actually slower than if you were to go ahead and get it all set up in Tahoma? And the answer is I'm not sure. Not sure. Okay, so let's bake this down, meaning let's flatten the layer. Okay, and then what we'll do is take all of these frames, and we're going to go, we probably should go somewhere in the middle so we can see what we're doing. But what I'm going to do is hit the filter, which is going to be blur. And for our purposes, we might as well use motion blur, actually, even though it's not really motion blur. Because all we're trying to do is actually strike that. I just changed my mind on that particular point. Let's go to Gaussian blur. And we'll decouple those because I do want it to blur a little bit more horizontally than vertically. Yep. But we do want some vertical. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Multi-frame, go. So now it's going to slowly, apply that blur to every frame. And look at that. Is it perfect? Nah, not really. Not really. But that's okay for now. We can just leave it in there and see if once we get a background in there, if it kind of sits in the mix nicely. Okay, so here's the background. What are we going to do with the background? Well, I don't know. Let's fill it all up with brown for one thing. Let's just do that. And then we'll grab our favorite brush. Actually, let's use this one just to be radical. And hit the B key and make this bigger and a little yellower. And let's just smack in some texture that ostensibly could be argued to be somewhat akin to dirt. Talk about a long-winded way of saying something really simple. Let's put in a couple little spanky bankies of little bit more saturated color. Let's kind of put in a little bit of dark. Let's go back to our regular oil paint brush, make it really pretty big so we can kind of blend this all together. Right, doesn't much matter. All we're trying to do is create something that looks more or less like the dirt. Okay, well, what the hell did I just do? I hate when that happens. My my stylus slipped. I end up making this like invisible. Okay, this is not wonderful, but it's not bad. All right, so let's move this down and put it in its own group. Okay, because one thing I want to do is add another layer on top of this, and we'll just use Conan, and we're just gonna add a few sundries here and there that kind of suggest that maybe there's some vestiges of life somewhere here in this dusty ground of Gripson, right? And then, just for kicks and giggles, because I don't know, because it's like a thing to do, let's go ahead and do let's put a nice montage around it. Say, why are you doing that? I don't know. It kind of helps hem in the composition, and then we just turn it down and then ease it in. Right about there. Probably pretty good. Okay. Boom. Well, what do you think, friends? Is it acceptable? No dust. Oh, yeah, that's right. Thank you, Jim. Oh, my God, I forgot the dust. Okay, so let's put in the layer above. We'll do the dust here. Okay, so I'm going to do this the hard way. We'll call this dust, which meaning one frame at a time. I'm going to grab a brush that I kind of think is going to work okay. I'm going to grab a tone that's somewhat like, basically what I want is, let me see, do I hit the X key? Yes, I'll hit the X key and go here. Okay. 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 Did that take? Okay, so man, it would sure be good to name your layers there, Jack. This layer, I have no idea what it even is. And all I did was I meant to turn it off, and what I did was I hit the wrong icon and unpinned it. Unpinned it, which means I have to go through every layer now and see which one appears. There it is. Okay, so this is the background, and we'll call this, I said montage earlier, of course I meant vignette. This is leaves, so yeah, it takes a moment to give things intelligent names, but it's probably not a bad idea. So this would be cast shadow. This would be, of course, monkey. This would be his shadow. This would be GRP MNK, which is group monkey. And now we got dust. Okay, so now control insert. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go ahead and move this. For now, I'm going to probably expand it, and well, the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm thinking that's a bad idea. I need to just redraw this. Mainly because the dirt needs to have some variety to it. So I'm hitting the X key to, okay, insert. I'm hitting the X key to switch colors quickly. No idea, guys, if this is going to work. I'm pretty sure it is, but I don't know. It's one of those things that if you do it chaotically, it's probably going to work. You know, you just want to keep it loose, keep it fun. Okay, I'm going to actually flatten this and move it back this way. While at the same time, hang on, got to go back one frame. Okay, at the same time, letting the outflow of it keep making progress, which means this actually needs to be here now. This probably could be slid forward like that. That would not make sense to move back. So I'm going to actually just hit insert to create a blank keyframe. Looks great. You think? I don't know if we're at the... I don't know if we've reached looks great. I think you're talking about the overall feel of the animation. It came out pretty good. I mean, I'm happy with it. I ain't complaining too much, even though I do complain a lot. A frightening amount, if the truth be known. And that's because I can be a real jerk. I know I can. And I'm really thinking about that, Tom. Just so you know. Don't you think for an instant that I don't. You know, when we had a little ticklish moment yesterday. Little ticklish moment. And I always think about that stuff. God, you know, am I just like a complete jerk here? I'm trying to express my ideas and opinions as best I can, but sometimes, you know, you just get too pissy for no good reason. Okay. Let's see what this does. Okay, so this would be representing progress for this, right? So he's slamming into the dirt, and now the dirt is going to spray away. So this dirt should be moved off stage. Okay, hit the B key. Now there's going to be more. Okay, and this is going to actually also spray behind, like that. So this can be kind of erased, but I'm doing it sloppily, specifically so some of the particles remain, actually. That's kind of the idea. Okay, so out of erase mode. I'm going to split here in a minute to go hang out with the V-Babe. So let's go here. So again, I'm hitting the erase key and just scribbling. so that not everything gets erased, but some things get erased. And then take what I did, move it a little bit so that there's some sense of movement of those individual particles. Make sense? Hopefully. Okay. This is probably, okay. Honestly, I think this is what should happen. I'm gonna go ahead and hit an insert, put in a blank keyframe, and this is what I think should happen here. I'm not sure, but I think what should happen is, boom, right here, insert a keyframe, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go hit the B key, make this really big. Okay. Okay, this, in order to play, I don't think this is going to play, so I think it needs to be a skosh bigger, like that. Okay, and now, I guess it would hold for half a second, and then start to shrink very gently. Okay, so now this, first of all, the whole layer should be probably something like that. I have no idea how well this is going to work, guys. And actually, I'm going to check this, and then I'm going to sign off. So, save our work. Okay. Okay, so just we'll blame this on Krita. The animation cache is not refreshing. This is supposed to be transparent, but when it plays back anything but. So that's just a Krita anachronism. And since the way this looks over top of the background is all important, then Krita has hosed me in a big way here. But that's okay. I'm going to save my work. I'll tune this up and fix it later. I may even put outlines around the cloud. I may remove the cloud. If I can't play back my animation and know what it's actually going to look like, which you can't because of, right, we're avoiding a rant right now, right? Are we not? Okay. So anyway, we'll deal with that later. So anyway, that's it. I'm out of here. You guys, as you know, there will be more.